very nerve-wracking day, and we made it so far pretty nicely through the day, but the big bangers are coming after hours. However, we should celebrate exactly like these little green guys here that we made it out alive and through the Fed meeting, even though the market is already selling off again after what just happened. So first of all, the Fed meeting, kudos to Warsh. Warsh, the new Fed chairman, I'm just a total sucker for professionals, and this guy is a professional. He is, I think, much better than Jerome Powell. He comes across as a man who has it under control. He is very balanced. He provides us with a lot of the feeling of confidence, at least. And I really like Warsh. That was his second time he was leading as the Fed chairman that meeting. And I'm very, very impressed. It is very rare that you see people in power who are actually not complete morons and imbeciles. So it is very nice to see him really growing into that position and being extremely professional. That, I think, is a very welcomed change to many other things we see in politics, not just in the United States. Of course, there are many problems. Think about the Secretary of War and other people. Bessent is another very good man in the administration. And then, of course, on the other side of the pond in Europe, we see losers and failures all across the European Union to a shocking degree where you think, what is even happening? So in this whole context, Warsh is like a ray of light, of sunshine in the field of incompetence and shocking incompetence. I'm very glad that we have this man in place. He delivered exactly what I predicted should be delivered. I said I have a certain level of confidence that we don't get a rate hike, and I have a certain level of confidence we get alive through this meeting. But you never know. And so I'm very glad that he was spot on. I couldn't have done it better. I think he did a perfect job, and that gave the markets, of course, a good chunk of confidence. And we saw the market very positively reacting to this whole thing. Here you see Micron, of course, completely selling off again. But we saw the markets actually doing pretty well, but now selling off again. So you saw here the Fed meeting. And for those of you who are not familiar how this normally goes, the market is incredibly, insanely negative. It just was waiting for selling off and it could not sell off. Actually, Warsh forced that market to go up. So that was the end of the Fed meeting right here. And after it was done, there was basically everything was perfect. That was forcing the market even green. And now it's selling off because it's just the market right now. So the negativity is, of course, overwhelming, but at least now we have a giant signal from the Fed that they're not playing along with this panic sell-off. And I think that could be the first indication that we might see a turnaround. I don't want to jinx anything, and this sell-off can, of course, continue. Right now, we are in absolute free fall for the semiconductors. When you look through this complete bloodbath that happened today again, especially with Micron, which is shocking, because the SK Hynix earnings yesterday were actually very good for Micron. There was no indication for oversupply. There was no indication of too much CapEx. There were some indications that SK Hynix actually under-delivered, but in a very good way for the competition. So Micron killed the earnings. So it's very ironic that Micron is selling off even more today. I totally lightened up on my position. I rolled my short puts over. Short puts are a magic tool, by the way. If you sell them out of the money, even in these disastrous moves against me, I'm still standing. So you just have to pay attention and roll them back down. But of course, if this doesn't recover by Friday, at least to 800, I rolled it now back down. It's definitely going to be a losing trade, but no risk, no fun. So let's see how it goes. Of course, the big agenda point today, after hours, are the earnings of three giantly important companies. Maybe one of them not so important for you, but important for me, which is Robinhood. I have a Robinhood position. I have a tiny Meta position. I have no Microsoft position. But Meta and Microsoft are Mag 7 companies, and they're extremely important to watch because the market wants to see more blood. And sniffing out blood, the tiniest drop of blood, will lead to continued sell-off of the semiconductors because the market just tries to construct its case. And you know how it is when markets fall, they grasp for every straw that allows them to drive down the stocks more, even if it's the most irrational little piece. Now, we have these earnings, and these earnings will be very likely extremely positive. The earnings, we already know what they're going to say. They're going to say AI is absolute crazy growth. We have a backlog from here to Timbuktu. We can make infinite money. Here's the money. Here are the receipts. And now we are going to do CapEx, right? We're going to do CapEx. And that is what the market is waiting for. And what the market wants is panic. And so how can you panic? You can panic if there's too much CapEx, if Meta and Microsoft or Meta or Microsoft says, you know what, we are increasing our CapEx, then the markets panic. They're going to say, oh my God, too much money is being spent. This is more than we expected. They're all going broke. They're overspending. They're overinvesting despite giant backlogs, despite guaranteed massive earnings from that CapEx. Market doesn't care. We saw it with Google. So if we exceed CapEx on the upside, we are going to get a little bit of a sell-off, very likely, if this continues the madness. If we see CapEx lower than expected, it's going to get even worse. Because then the market's going to say, oh my God, AI is dead. It's over. It's over. Micron goes to zero. SanDisk goes to zero. This is the end of the world because now we see the end of CapEx. So that is the problem right now in this market, in the sentiment. Even if they stick to CapEx, so in my opinion, the best thing that could happen is that they're keeping CapEx exactly as planned. Say everything is great. We planned all that stuff. And we will actually keep our CapEx expectations, maybe raise them marginally. I think that would be the best outcome that makes it the hardest for the market to go nuts. If we see even Google level CapEx exceeding expectations, and that was 8% or something, instead of 185 billion, they spent 200 billion. So it's, it's like roughly whatever, 8% exceeding expectations on CapEx, and that sent Google into a tailspin and was put pressure on the market. I think the absolute worst would be if they pull back CapEx. I think then the market gets exactly what they want, and they're going to sell off these semiconductors like insane people. And at this point, fundamentals absolutely don't matter anymore. Look at Micron. I mean, Micron is now trading in what, like at a trailing or current price earnings ratio of 17, and it grows at 300% a year. Insane. So they have a forward price earning under 7 at this point. That's completely nuts. So let's see. Of course, this can't go on forever, and everyone who knows anything about AI, not the dummies that are normally memory investors, these people have completely, they don't understand what's happening. But the people who are the smartest AI people, they all say, this is just a golden buying opportunity. Everything is insanely cheap. Micron is insanely cheap. NVIDIA is insanely cheap. And for those of you who understand Tesla and SpaceX, you understand that they're also insanely cheap. It's a little harder to understand, but also insanely cheap. So look at NVIDIA, absolutely ridiculous. And you see, where do you have Tesla? Here, Tesla, under 300. So this is a pretty steep sell-off. Here's the Fed meeting over, and now they're deciding to sell off. The market says, damn, we wanted to hear something we can complain about. We didn't hear anything we can complain about, so we don't care, just sell it off. So the negativity is just absolutely through the roof. And obviously that's extremely dangerous for these earnings. And there is basically nearly no way. There's nearly no way how this does not lead to a sell-off tomorrow, because there's no possible scenario what Meta or Microsoft could say to not lead to a sell-off, in my opinion. They will beat on earnings. They will make insane amounts of money. They will say, well, we have a backlog from here to Timbuktu. for people who want to buy our hyperscaler stuff. Therefore, we have to buy all these NVIDIA chips and these Micron chips. We need to build this all out. There will be CapEx expectations, and they will either exceed them by a lot, then we see a total sell-off and the stocks get destroyed. They will exceed them by just a tiny little bit, which will be the best scenario, in my opinion, where the market will also sell them off because they're just dumb. But that leads to the least sell-off. They could be in expectations, which might be at this point a little worse than exceeding it slightly for the semiconductors. Or they might say we are taking it back, and I think that's the end of the world if they say that. So let's see. Let's see what actually happens. I'm glad I lightened up on Micron. Look at this. Look at the sell-off. Oh my God. For absolutely no reason, Micron is now down 22% for the week. Let that sink in. Zero news, zero reason for that stock to sell off like this. So we are definitely in interesting times. And Chris Camillo posted something very interesting today. I mean, it's not very interesting. It's first very smart. He says, this is a generational buying opportunity, and you have one job. You need to survive. Whoever comes out of here alive, doesn't matter how much you lose, as long as you keep living, you know, you can lose even 50%, no problem. If that's your risk profile, you make it back very quickly. Just don't lose 90%. It's that simple. So the rule here is, don't be too greedy in the sense of taking any excessive risks. This market is completely nuts and irrational. We are now in the deep irrational phase, and that means anything can happen because fundamentals play no role right now. Zero role, as you see with Micron. And do not try to be rational short-termish when the market is clearly unhinged. That is all I can say. And the mantra is survival. If you survive this, you will be rich, even if you think you're very poor right now. If you don't survive it, it's very bad. So preserve capital. That's the key. This is not the time to be greedy. I'm very ungreedy right now. And let's see, because once the madness is over, we will see a massive rally back to sanity. And it's all hinging on the AI trade, and the AI trade is so robust at this point that I can't even put it into words. AI is here to stay. It is absolutely safe, this whole thing. This is what I am saying. And I showed some of these things yesterday, I think. You see the big tech valuations. We are at the lowest for these big tech valuations. Here, Amazon, for example, the lowest in the last 10 years. Not just a bit, by a little bit, by a lot. Even Alphabet at the lowest in 10 years, or the lowest, 10-year lows. Same for Microsoft, okay? And we see it here for Meta. We see it for Alphabet, not so much. Only Apple is expensive. Let that sink in. Do we have NVIDIA? Yeah, you see NVIDIA here. So that is totally crazy. And you have to also consider this is the forward PE ratio. Okay, so this is one of the lowest PE ratios for NVIDIA of the last 10 years, while it has the highest growth ever. Or it has at least much higher growth than back here. So I can just say generation buying opportunity. I can say the earnings. This is not about what these people report. It is how much away, how far away from 100% hitting everything perfectly are they? And even if they hit everything perfectly, they will be sold off. That is my prediction. And we have to just wait until the market isn't crazy anymore. When that will be, I don't know. But that level of insanity that we are seeing right now cannot last long. This cannot last another week. That is what I'm saying. We reached officially the point of very close to max insanity. But once you are very close to max insanity, you can easily get to full insanity. And that's what we have to understand. When it comes to these crazy situations, you can never be sure what happens next. So Micron has now passed for a long time already the threshold of sanity. And if that happens, all bets are off. So you have to be cautious. If you are a shareholder, no problem. if you do any kind of margin games or something, be very cautious because that thing can crash. So it's already crashing. Of course, once this whole thing stops, this goes back up to 900 probably in one day, but you don't know when that is. We just know it can't be too far out. That's good for stockholders, but any kind of margin games here are slightly suicidal. Okay, let's see what we have here in the discussion. We will go into this discussion. I need to learn how this new thing works. I always first have to go to YouTube. Wow, look at this. Crazy times. And let's go back here, and now it should be active. Chat, exactly. Hello, audio is good, very good. Everything is dumping, yeah. And it's dumping after the speech, so it's just completely nuts what's happening here. Glad I lightened up more because I thought, yeah, these people are unhinged. AMD's dumping NVIDIA probably too. Tesla's a little bit dumping. Wow, Tesla's a lot dumping. NVIDIA, not so much. Tesla is dumping a little bit more. Crazy. But see, it's all of them. Look, Palantir. This is why you should always have a watch list and look at a lot of them. Because if you're just a Tesla investor, like, oh my God, why Tesla? And you see it's exactly, even Snap, QQQ looks exactly identical. Palantir looks identical. NVIDIA looks identical. Micron looks identical. MicroStrategy, oh my God. So they're all looking exactly the same. The Fed pushed them up, nothing to complain here. And now they're all going nuts, selling off Meta and Microsoft into earnings and Robinhood into earnings big time. But you know what? I feel these are the last little tantrums the market is throwing. Like this behavior, I've watched many Fed meetings, and normally if the Fed does anything wrong, they're starting to sell off immediately in the meeting. This meeting went as smooth as you can imagine. So we can take maybe one more look at CNBS, what these people are coming up with. I'm sure they're coming up with some panic. Maybe they figured out how to interpret this panicky. Oh, how stupid. It was a 9-3 vote. And then they see, but 3 members voted to hike. That's the best you can come up with to panic us. So it was really a perfect meeting. And they're, of course, putting these people up. 9 voted against and 3 voted yes. So these people are the problem. My whole portfolio is Tesla, SpaceX, MU, and every day I wake up and more depressed. I make random videos for you. Yeah, just don't look at it. Don't fight the Fed, but the Fed is on our side. Morons and imbeciles. The ones buying SpaceX and Tesla, no. The ones that are not buying that, they will look very dumb. Can you afford to buy anything? Exactly. Exactly. Kevin Brown says, I watch Warsha exudes competence. Exactly. Tesla back in 2020 went down. It was depressing, but then a few years later, my portfolio soared unexpected. It took me a few minutes to figure out it was Tesla. Yeah. Ricardo Santos. Hello, Joe. Born in South Africa, living in UK, and parents born in Madeira. Believer in Tesla and been investing 1 year and 6 months. Been listening to you ever since my journey. Love your videos. Great, Ricardo. Well, welcome. It's South African like Elon. Welcome to the channel. Great to have you here. And we have to go through these, challenging times, and it's very important to always see this whole thing in context. And then it's very important for Tesla shareholders specifically not to overfit this stuff on Tesla. Like this, look at this. Okay, Tesla looks bad, and Snap, QQQ, Palantir, NVIDIA, MicroStrategy, some of them look even worse. Meta looks worse. Robinhood, like, this is not just Tesla. Okay, let's go down. But CapEx makes PE number go down. Time to sell. People need to learn more than one number and bank ratings. Yeah. Schwab rates Tesla F. I wonder why exactly. Tesla just broke 300. I know. Iran is what's drawing the biggest fear in the market in years. Once this is over, tech markets will skyrocket. I had a very good discussion on X, and I don't think it's just Iran. Iran is a problem, sure, but Iran is not the only problem. We have also more systemic problems like the yen carry trade, I think, plays maybe a larger role, that the Japanese money that was so important is now being sucked back into Japan, and that's a very structural problem. Glenn McEnroe says, not sure how Fed saved us. Well, they definitely saved us. If you think this is bad, what we are seeing, believe me, the Fed probably saved us, because the pattern of sell-off here is clearly not because of the Fed. It's the last tantrum the market wants to throw. The Fed was here, it went up like crazy, and here's where the Fed ended. And then the market was like looking around like, God damn it, why did the Fed perform so perfectly? Just sell it all for no reason. And that's often the end of the tantrum, I tell you. There might be one more shocker day tomorrow. I think this is coming to an end. That is my prediction. I didn't want to make a prediction, but my prediction is we are getting to the end of the tunnel. So just keep surviving. And before the end, just when it's darkest, or when it's darkest is, no, just when it turns darker, it turns darkest just before it goes pitch black. That's the saying. So you have to be a little cautious. Tesla sold 122. I'm not sure if I shall invest in Micron. I have already so many tech stocks. I mean, I think Micron is an absolute buy if you can buy the stock and not on margin. Hi Joe from Tucson, Arizona. Can a turnaround catalyst be as simple as just one of the AI stocks go up and then the rest will follow? No. I think the turnaround here, it must be the entire tech and AI play. They can only turn around as a whole. This is just too big. And of course, you know how selling works. Like, you can only sell so much. At some point, you don't have sellers left. And the fundamentals kick in. Everyone I respect on X says this is completely oversold. Everyone. From Chamath to the All In podcast, to Gavin Baker, to many smart people. I was like, dude, this is easy, just buy. To Chris Camillo, everyone says, just buy this stuff. Buy whatever you can, but not on margin. Buy it in a way where you can survive another drop. But this, I mean, this is just free money. That's what it is. It's free money. You keep saying no reason for the sell-off, but isn't the Iran-US war escalation applying macro pressure on a long-dated asset? I mean, first of all, are they really long-dated? Like, is this long-dated? If you have capex of 200 billion, you make 200 billion back in year one, and then another 200 billion in year two, and another 200 billion in year three. How is this long-dated? It's all relative, right? So obviously, yeah, can Trump blow up the world? Sure, but is it likely? No. I keep saying it. No one is listening to me. Obviously, Trump could just go all in Iran and destroy the world. It's just not very likely, because that would be too suicidal. So that was my argument all along. I don't know how Meta is even considered in the AI trade. They have the worst AI product out of anybody. It doesn't compete at all. Well, they are in the trade because they started leasing out. They have a lot of compute, and they're going to build out compute. They're going to build out more compute. That's what they're going to do. Man, someone made a killing in the betting markets if the Fed landed on green. I don't think many were expecting that. This is total BS, but I love buying Tesla cheap. Exactly. Greetings for Joe from Barcelona, Spain. ARK buying more Tesla and SpaceX might take their reversal as soon as the VIX starts heading down over the next 2 weeks. Well, the VIX, where do we have the VIX? The VIX also showed some, I mean, the VIX was just moving with the market and showed some crazy stuff, because the VIX was totally down, then totally shot up. So look at this. The VIX was totally down during the Fed meeting, then went up here, and then boom, of course. So the VIX is just It's never really a leading indicator. It's just following this stuff. SpaceX under 100 by Friday, Tesla 270 Friday. Well, let's see. Tesla sellers will regret this in the not too distant future. I think so too. All the sellers will regret it. Will we get 10,000 Robotaxi before Christmas? I doubt it at this point, but I don't think it's far away from Christmas. Maybe we get it for Christmas. That would be a surprise at this point. Maybe we get pushed a quarter, but I think it is imminent. I'm sticking to my guns. I think people are getting distracted here. Yeah, so you have to push against the sound trolls because we can't do this every time. Damn, I thought you were gonna say it's darkest just before the dawn. No, the saying is it's darkest just before it turns pitch black. That's my favorite saying. Hang in there, guys. I think this is the peak fear we are feeling right now. I don't know if it's a peak fear, but we are like days away from peak fear. It's either behind us or it's today or it's in the coming days. Lazard, January. Joe, I love people like you who have the courage to express their own opinions. This includes bold theories too. Thank you. Yeah, I'm here to share my thoughts, you know, not recommendations. I'm just telling you what I think, because why else would you listen? How bad is it? It's pretty bad. Pretty bad. I mean, I think the turnaround here, I don't think, just to your question, I don't think we are in a situation where any single stock can do anything about this whole mess. There is just nothing you can do because it's irrational. If it's irrational, what can you do? You have to basically wait and let it burn through. That means all the crazy people and all the people on margin that have to now sell because they simply have no choice, that needs to be burned through. And while we are burning through the madness, there is no arguing, right? You can't argue if Micron falls below a 1 PE, right? If you say your market cap is now lower than your earnings next year, no one cares if everyone sells, okay? So in the panic season, doesn't matter. You have to wait until the panic is over, and we are in a total panic. You probably have seen the chart that we have the worst month in the last 30 years in terms of sell-off. The worst sell-off month for momentum stocks in the last 30 years, including the great financial crisis and the dot-com crash. This was the worst month that we have ever seen in the last 30 years. Goldman did the analysis in terms of stock losses. So if you think you have a bad time, guess what? Everyone has an extremely bad time. The worst time in the last 30 years. People are not totally aware of that, at least on a monthly basis. The shock here is that how abrupt, it was more abrupt than the dot-com crash and more abrupt than the financial crisis. They were much worse in terms of consecutive months, but individual month, we had the maximum sell-off in July. And that's for sure now even getting worse with these last. I loaded the boat on SanDisk. Yeah, just be cautious. It's good to load the boat with this stuff, but I would actually, you know, probably a diversified approach on these like SanDisk, Micron, SK Hynix, probably smart. Okay, where did we end up? Market is closed now. Oh my God, look at this. Complete insanity. I lightened up, but this still hurts. Completely nuts. Tesla, where did we end up with Tesla? 298. Well, and we hit, look at this. We were green. We were green just an hour ago. An hour ago, Tesla was green. Crazy. What do you think is holding Tesla Robotaxi expansion back? I don't believe they need more miles. Are they waiting for something? FSD 15? Yeah, Ragnar, that is a very good question. I think what they are attempting to do is just incredibly complicated. And I think they have nearly all pieces in place, but probably not all pieces. I think it's really not that simple. If you have robotaxis out there that actually drive people around and, you know, when they have any accident, it's game over. I mean, just imagine you're in charge of 1,000 robo taxis that autonomously drive themselves around in United States cities. That's nuts. Like nothing can go wrong. So I think there's just a ton of fine tuning necessary. Why is Google up? Where's Google? This watch list sucks. Google. Why is Google up? I tell you why Google is up. Because Google sold off after earnings for extremely no reason. That was like the dumbest thing I've ever seen, the sell-off of Google. Look at this. Some people say it was like rigged or something. So they're still down from earnings, right? They were at 341 and they're at 335. So they delivered amazing earnings. Well, because of SpaceX, but also they delivered pretty good earnings, beautiful outlook. And it dropped 7%. So Google has to catch up to that point here. I think that's why they're up. What's interesting is that we saw Meta sell off into the whole thing. Well, with the market. Microsoft not so much, but Microsoft had a very bad time. And they're totally flatlining here. Year to date, down 20%. Can you imagine this? 20% down year to date, Microsoft. That's pretty bad. Meta after hours down 4.8%, as I just discussed. I don't even have to look at the results. I mean, it's probably all amazing. Microsoft is up. That's interesting. Well, is it up? What is happening here? Is Micron selling off? That gives us, oh, we are live now with all that stuff. Micron not off a lot. That's interesting. I mean, after that sell-off, you see it live here. You know, we don't even have to read anymore what actually happened in earnings because no one even cares. We just have to find the reason why they're selling this thing off. I bet Meta is selling off because I said something about more CapEx. That looks for me like more CapEx. We can look into the details in a second. MicroStrategy. Didn't mean MicroStrategy. Microsoft. Up 4.47%. Very interesting. Let's go on X and do this live and see what the rationale for sell-off is. Let's say Meta, I'm betting on CapEx. Let's see. Here, Meta sees 3Q revenue 61 billion to 64 billion, estimated 63.17. What's wrong with people? Okay, so that's horrible or what? Like what? Meta sees 3Q revenues at the 61 billion, oops, 61 billion to 64, but expected was 63.1. Okay, so what? The 1 trillion in hidden SPV leverage and what 10 trillion in capex will make up for it. Well, let's see. That's of course a joke. Let's see if we see anything. Summary on capex. Well, they all don't even know what the expectations. Oh, they were missing EPS of 6.18. We're missing expectations. Maybe that's the reason. Oh, that's me. That's me. That's me live. Okay, where do we have CapEx? What's the reason? Let's just see if our friends at CNBC say something useful. No, they just see earnings per share. It's an earnings miss. But that can't be really the reason to sell this thing off so much. Well, who cares? Who knows? They don't need reasons at these points. How much is it down? 7.5%. Not bad. But I think we have to wait for the call to see see what the semiconductors are doing. They don't react yet on that. They're all tiny little bit down. Do we see Nvidia a little bit up, but basically nothing? So far, no big news here. We can look at Microsoft, what they say about that earnings report. They beat earnings a little bit, 10% or 11%. 90 billion revenue versus 87 billion. So this is all not that interesting in my opinion. The interesting thing is their outlook for AI. That will be the interesting thing. What do they say about AI? What do they say about cloud? What do they say about CapEx? And then that will determine what happens. So far, Microsoft versus Meta is a 1-to-1, one loser, one winner. No big effects on the market, in my opinion. This will be all decided in the CapEx and AI race in the calls. Anything, let's see if they have anything on CapEx, but they probably have to do this in the call because that will be discussed. Meta sees forward CapEx 130 to 145 versus one. So this is pretty good, guys. Do you remember what I said? What would be the best case scenario? This smells like a best case scenario. This is basically perfect. Maybe that is engineered also to be perfect. So basically Meta says, if that's true, I hope it's true. I don't know if it's true. But they predicted, or what we had on record so far was 125 to 145 billion CapEx, and they're adjusting it to 130 to 145 billion. I think that is exactly what I want to see. That gives the market the least argument against what's happening. Exactly in line with a slight revision upward. Beautiful. So if that is true, Meta delivered on what I want to see. Now Microsoft has to deliver also on that to not make us nervous. So far I'm like not unhappy. I'm not unhappy. Microsoft, do we have any? CapEx information? No. No. So this is very good news. So far, I like it. I like the 1-to-1. One is a little bit a loser, one is a little bit a winner. That's nice. I like it diversified. Is that real? I never know what's fake news and what's real. CapEx including leases, 41 billion, estimated 42 billion. CapEx, 35 billion, estimated 35.22 billion. Perfect. But that is probably the quarterly CapEx. So this will be all about the outlook. I don't think we will know that before the call, and the call is too late for me. Exactly. I think they're right. Vanquish Trader is right. Microsoft earnings today matter less for the headline beat than whether Asia can sustain 40% growth as new capacity comes online and demand remains above supply. I think they will. That makes forward 27 CapEx the next key variable. That is exactly right. This is the big question. That is the big question. If Asia stays near or above 40%, Copilot adoption accelerates and operating profit holds, then the market should view CapEx as productive. Well, it should. So we have to wait for the earnings call, but so far everything is going smoothly except for the market selling off. Let's see if they can sustain that 2.68. Okay, a little less enthusiastic. Meta is probably getting sold off 7%, 4%. Good. See, guys, that's what I like. Moderation. Started -7%. Now it's at -4.6%. That's very good. Microsoft also moderating from 4% down to 2-point-something% after hours, but plus 2.68%. So far, I can't complain. Because here's very simple. Guys, don't chase, like in your mind, don't be panicking, like looking at career, like you have to understand, we are completely oversold. We are in complete panic mode, but we have been in panic mode now for multiple days in a row. That signals bottom unless you have a real problem, right? Not in the dot-com crisis and not in the 2008 crisis, because in dot-com, you are bringing down price earnings ratios of Cisco, the equivalent of NVIDIA back then, from 120 PE. Okay, that can go a long way down. So you should not relax if you see a 30% retracement of the market if the PE is still at 90. But we are at PEs of forward PEs of 4. Okay, so we definitely are not in a dot-com bubble scenario. In fact, we are in an anti-bubble. We are already like so close to the ground that this thing, like think about that. We had forward PEs of 120 or more, actually much more, for the largest, most important companies in dot-com. Now, instead of 120, we have forward PEs of 7. So that tells you a little bit, okay, this has nothing to do with the 2000 dot-com bubble. In 2008, we had systemic risks. We had like basically the end of the world coming because the entire economy was imploding. So there's also no holding back. Right now, we have some of the most robust growth, robust cash inflows, and robust technology transformations, and super disciplined spending and super low valuations. And we are selling off and panicking. And if that happens, there is not much time left to continue the panic. And that means what we are looking now, oh, now it's like getting a little critical. What we are looking now for, it's probably trying to turn more negative. Let's see if Meta is also more down. The market tries to be negative. No, Meta, not going down. Let's see. So what we are looking for is moderation of big guys like these. And tomorrow, I think tomorrow's Amazon, that will be the third. So we have a certain chance. I would say it's more likely than not that this little nightmare is over by Friday. Because if Meta delivers, and they kind of did, they had a little miss, but the market digest is not too bad. The CapEx looks reasonable. If Microsoft now delivers in their call and doesn't say something stupid and says Asia is growing, we are not changing CapEx too much. We are slightly adjusting it up, slightly, but not too much, exactly like Meta. And we see all this demand and 40% growth. And then Amazon is also very positive. These three could turn it around. That is what I think. Because we can't go on much longer like this. It's just too irrational. And I think we are very close to a turnaround here. And that could be the sign we are looking for. Even Micron can't sell off right now. If Micron can't find a reason to sell off, that's a good signal. What do you think is holding Tesla? Oh, we had this Crosby. I think you're dropping this crown. Thank you for the information commentary, Joe. Thank you. Titan IV. I'm like that dog meme with a fire around him saying this is fine with a straight face. Well, as long as you're not getting forced to sell, it is, I think, fine. Tesla will go back to 75. I don't think so. I loaded the boat a few days ago and I'm 20% down on everything. Well, don't overload the boat. As long as you're just long, that's fine. I traded the day nearly perfectly and I even shorted Tesla on that last push above 307, but I covered too soon. I knew we would sell off after FOMC, but I underestimated the madness. Yeah. I mean, it was, I would have probably, if you forced me to bet, I would have bet on that too, but not high conviction. Check Meta. Should we check Meta again? Meta. Meta is doing fine. Sell-off a little overdone. Let's do 2 screens so I can watch them all at once. Microsoft is doing good. Here, how can I do this? Can do it like this. Oops, I messed it up, my plan. So yeah, this is kind of the situation we are seeing here. I have to put this here. Meta is now, well, it's down 4.8%, so this looks like stabilizing around there, but we have to wait for the call. This can all change, obviously. But yeah, we can't say too much. So far, nothing too concerning to see here. It will really depend on the calls, what happens next. But we definitely had a panic sell-off in the end of this day today. So we are still in panic mode, that is for sure. If I had to place a bet, then it's this bet. Let's wrap it up here with this final bet. My bet is if CapEx of Meta comes in where we saw it comes in, the forward projected, instead of 125 to 145 billion, 130 billion to 145 billion, that's perfect. If Microsoft now comes up with something similar, like, oh, here was our CapEx, we slightly increase it, or we increase the bottom end but keep the top end, and Asia is growing nicely, that is very good. Then we are on track of turning this market around. And if then Amazon comes out and says the same stuff, you know, something Google or less exceed CapEx and not decrease CapEx, and everything is fine, I think that could signal the turnaround. Here you have it. You heard it here first. That is what I think. Doubled my Micron position today. Depends how much Micron you have, but I think Micron is just a crazy buy right now. I mean, it's a crazy screaming buy. I wouldn't hurry too much, but I mean, it's just completely ridiculous at this point. Micron is truly ridiculous when you look at, I think I shared this on X, the earnings that are coming up for Micron. That is completely nuts what you're seeing here. Did I share this somewhere here? Look at this. That's the upcoming earnings, the projected earnings. Complete madness. 940, like $1 trillion in earnings by 2029. And there is no reason to believe this is not going to happen. And these first years are already locked in. 2026, 27, 28 are locked in. Complete and utter madness. And Micron over that period of time is closing into $600 billion in earnings. Even if this is a cycle, even if this is the top, even if 600 billion in earnings is the top, is it really smart to value that company at 800 billion if 600 billion earnings are coming and no one can change that? What do you expect happens after 2029, that all earnings suddenly go to zero? That's so dumb. So this is just a screaming buy, if you ask me. Just not in a way where you can get killed, because the market is definitely has lost its mind. So, as I said in the beginning, I have one advice for everyone. Don't get killed. Your main mission now, if you made it so far and you still have money left, you will be wealthy in the future. Just don't lose it. That's very important. Tesla is such a wild stock. There have been times when it goes up, up, up for no reason. Now it's going down, down, down for no reason. Yeah, Amour de Paris. But look at the other stocks. If you think Tesla is crazy, look at this one. That is crazy, especially that because it has. Do you see this even? Wait, where's my, it's not even sharing this. Here, look at this stock. If you want to know what's crazy, then look at Micron. Up 158% this year. Down 23% in the last 5 days. Down 35% in the last month. That's nuts. So Tesla is not that special. Microsoft is the only AAA bond rating left. This is a very good comment here. Microsoft is the only AAA bond rating left. Amazon, Google are AA. Oracle and SpaceX hover near junk. This is pretty serious as the hounds are tracking off balance SPVs. I don't think that's that serious, Mark. I mean, AAA is pretty good and AA is also pretty good. Of course, Oracle and SpaceX are junk. So, I mean, junk bonds, not junk. Meta bond rating is pretty solid. So they are all like super solid. I would have no concerns. Of course, AA is like a downgrade, but they're still AAA. I don't know what Meta is. Meta is probably also AA or AAA. Here's static frequency. I disagree with this. Tesla going to 175. I mean, could be, but I disagree with that. I think Tesla will be completely dependent on the market. And there is a very real chance that this market turns around on Friday, or at least next week. If we get what I just said, we will know that by tomorrow night. But tomorrow we already know a lot from these two. This is not important, Jerdobi. That is not important because that is for the quarter. We have to see forward guidance. That's very important. Trump has been manipulating the market with his warmongering and tariff threats. Yeah, Trump was not helpful for this market. He's the opposite of Warsh. Fras01, my portfolio has been cut in half, pretty brutal. The bear case is so dumb in my own, so short-term focus and assumes that all the eyes. I would be totally not nervous about this. I know, Fras, it's very painful, these things, but you're not the only one. A lot of, like, look at X, like, all over the place. And we also have to understand, you know, we are now in a situation where it's actually not very hard to make 100% back. Or at least 80%. That can happen very quickly. That's why it's important to stay in with little diamond hands and double down if you can. Wait until it bottoms out, which is very close, but I would wait until we're on the right side of the V. And just make sure you can survive any amount of short-term drop. That's very important. Fras, I don't know. I think you can reason your way into this. Like, there is no reason for the whole sell-off, number one. That's the first thing you have to assess. Is there anything actually wrong? The answer is absolutely not. There's nothing wrong unless we blow up Iran. But even then, AI is still strong. NASDAQ is like 2.5% down. Is it? Not really. I mean, all these are doing fine. Micron, crazy. But 1.6%, that's like nothing for Micron. So let's look at Tesla. After hours, 295. Everyone is a little down, but not much. NVIDIA, nearly nothing, but NVIDIA is also like so oversold. I can't even put it into words. Let's take another look at, I always click on MicroStrategy. Microsoft. Doing very well. Microsoft doing very well, but we shouldn't look too much at it. Oh, now it's down 6%. We have to wait for the calls. That will be the decisive question here, and then we go from there. Do you think next week is a good week? Hood ripping? How's hood ripping? Yeah, I'm long. This is one of my bigger positions, but I don't want to. It's not ripping. It's down. It was ripping. The market is. Hood is one of my bigger positions. but I don't care too much. This is a long-term thing for me. I don't do much on Hood. I don't play Hood. I just have it. If Tesla drops 50% from here, you mean? I get margin called. How likely you see it happening? Tesla at 150. That's not gonna happen. I would be sleep very safely on that. Daily, the AI narrative is broken, too much doubt, game over. No, I think the opposite is true. I think we are at max fear right now. Hey Joe, I just want you to know that Train to Train Me and Uncle Milt are going to go from show to show. You, Joe, Randy, and Herbert to make sure everyone is safe and sound with Tesla and SpaceX. I'm going to be on Herbert on Cyberbulls tomorrow, by the way. Agree that Micron is screaming by, but if bubble, then orders can be cancelled. That is what the bubblers might be thinking, but there is just no bubble. You know, that's why we have to observe the actual facts on the ground with Microsoft and Meta and Amazon. That's why they are so important. Oh, now they want to get more negative, the market. See, you always have to look at all of them parallel. The market wants Tesla dead. Yeah, they want Tesla dead. They want a lot of stocks dead right now. I would rather have SpaceX than MU right now. Good news or bad news doesn't matter. It's all downhill for semis. Yeah, but as I said, it's like, you know, it's always darkest right before dawn, but in between it gets pitch black. Aftermarket follows the gravity in the moment. Yes. Sell the news. No, I don't think it's sell the news. You're doing a good job. Thank you. It's a tough time here. Nibbling on margin is dangerous. I'm 66% above maintenance, so the world would absolutely have to upside. You know. No, it's fine. Margin is fine if you do it in a controlled way. You know, the danger is not when you dabble around with margin. The danger is you do that and you always make money on margin. That's the problem. And then you get greedy and then you get lazy and then suddenly, right, you are 1% above maintenance. That's the problem. It's like options. It's easy to win. It's too easy to win and you win always in the beginning. And then you get too close to the sun and then you get killed. So you need immense discipline. The problem with margin is it's like a drug, right? It's if you do everything 10% margin, if you have 100% or something, you always win, but you never stick to 10%. And then it gets very dangerous. So you need immense discipline. Apple. I don't think Apple is very important, to be honest, for this whole thing because they're not a big AI player. So I don't have big opinions on Apple. I'm not following this too much. I don't think they're very important for the AI game. You can definitely make a lot of money with Apple, but I don't know exactly how. Joe, do you stops on your trades? I do it manually. I mean, I'm watching my trades. I know where I'm getting out and where I'm rolling. All the comments say fear right now. Yes, we are definitely at peak fear. There's no doubt. I don't know peak fear, but high fear. Max bottom for Tesla. No one knows. There is no max bottom. It is a function of the market. Let's make no mistake. All stocks can get cut in half if bad shit happens. But right now, there is just no reason to believe really bad things can happen. Because that cannot just be sentiment. Then we really need to see some problem, like China invading Taiwan, Trump going nuts and blowing up Iran, and Iran blowing up everyone else. I saw Cybercam in Los Angeles this morning. Nice. I have third of 3 purchases preload if Micron falls on another 30%. I mean, Micron is just nuts. This thing is totally nuts. It costs me real money here. Oh, now it's down to 719. This thing is just completely nuts. I'm glad I lightened up on this one. I definitely lost money then on this one. So bad. Unbelievable. So, but it's important. You see what I'm doing here. Look at this whole thing. And then, especially if you're Tesla obsessed, it's nothing to do with Tesla, this whole thing. These are literally, look at Tesla, Snap, QQQ, Palantir, NVIDIA, totally different stocks. Like they look exactly the same and have the exact same problem. Like if you think Tesla is bad, Tesla is definitely bad. But I mean, look at a killer stock like NVIDIA. NVIDIA was at 230 not long ago. Like, look at this. We were at 212 here. When were we at 230? It went up like, we were at 212 and this thing is now at 190, right? If you multiply this with 2 just for have closer Tesla's prices, just let that sink in. That is the equivalent of Tesla being at 424 and then dropping to 380. So pretty similar to exactly what Tesla did. And that is NVIDIA, okay? Did Microsoft earnings come out? Yes, they beat, double beat. But we are waiting for the CapEx thing. So Micron is definitely like getting slaughtered. I can't believe that. This thing was at 990 just a few days ago. It's now at 724. This is nuts. Okie dokie. So that's the situation. And my message is, if Microsoft and Meta and Amazon in these earnings calls today and then tomorrow say reasonable things that provide support for the AI thesis for further CapEx spend without breaking their bank, being in their guidance with slightly higher guidance, slightly higher CapEx guidance, that's what we want to see. And we want to see Asia and AWS performing very well. I think if we get that, that could turn the market around, especially down here. That's what I think. Here, Jesse, you Tesla people need to start being realistic about valuation. Well, that's what I'm saying. Tesla has no chance of going up right now in this market. But also, this market has no chance of staying like it is. And when this turns around, Tesla is going up like a little rocket, but so will everyone else. So what we see here, and that's my message, you know that I am deep in Tesla, and I'm also deep knowledge-wise in SpaceX. We just have to understand they are not as special as everyone thinks in terms of the stock price tactically. This is completely linked to the rest of the stock market. So we will, you know, long term, it matters that you did research on Tesla and understand Tesla, but short term, Tesla will probably move exactly in sync with NVIDIA and Palantir and Micron and the whole crowd, and even SpaceX. Well, SpaceX is a little special case. So, yeah, Jadobi, absolutely. If anyone cuts CapEx, then we have a little problem. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy the madness. Don't get nervous. I think next week will be much better. That's what I believe. And I think we have a chance of a turnaround by Friday if these earnings calls go okay. These three: Amazon, Microsoft, Meta. So let's see what happens today. If these two go okay on the CapEx side, that's already good. And then Amazon can't do too much damage. Thank you so much for joining. And oh, I should have done this layout. And I see you tomorrow. Cyber Bulls tomorrow, but I will have my own show before probably. Okay, see you guys then. Diamond hand.